Hi, everyone. We are Sara and Michelle, and we are unstoppable. How was your
Oh,
weekend, Sara?
Michelle, it was great. It was my first weekend without volleyball, which was quite, wow, weird and tackling lots of house and life stuff. But it was also a really good opportunity just to to hang out with all of my kids, my family. And I'm laughing as I say this because my son had two soccer games, but still, as a whole, I was able to go and just be his mom and a fan, and then yeah, have a day where we just had a family dinner and spent some time together. So that was really great. How about you?
Awesome. So much adventuring, mountain biking, hiking, you name it. Couple of basketball games, Yeah, it was really good. Okay, today I want to talk about giving praise where praise isn't due, or even learning how to give appropriate praise to keep in that growth mindset.
Yeah, I think that's such a valuable thing. And as you mentioned that to me, one of the pieces I thought of as a coach was when players are coming off of the court. So I've made a sub, and I often hear coaches saying to players, "Hey, good job." But if you're doing a good job, would I be taking you off? And you can see in the athlete's face, like, but why am I coming off? And so I think this is really important. What is the communication that we use to an athlete in many scenarios? And I think obviously game time scenarios, something like that. So we can talk about this one, the subbing, and then I think we could move into like what kind of feedback, and a great place to practice is in practice, right?
Yeah.
How do we give feedback to our athletes? So in this situation, what do you think? So that athlete's coming off. Sometimes it's because they've made errors. Sometimes it's because you're shifting something in the dynamic. But what is something as a coach that we're going to say to an athlete that is going to give them a message that they can understand?
So I have a perfect example of where I would say to a girl, good job. Like, you did good, but I have to take you off because the girl that's sitting on the bench that plays your position is 6'2".
Right.
And so as the season went on with her, and she'd come off and I'd give her a high five and I'd shrug my shoulders and say 6'2", and she would smile and laugh and come off. Right. But it was nothing. She wasn't doing anything wrong. She did do a good job. She's just not 6'2" and doesn't pound balls the same way that our 6'2" girl does. So that was one example where I was like, legit, I can tell you, you did a good job.
Yeah. And what we need in this situation, you don't have to offer. And I
Yeah.
think sometimes, and this is where you're getting to at this point, sometimes we're telling athletes, hey, as long as you try hard, you
Mhm.
get this. And it's, yeah, sometimes you try hard, and yet there's another player who has better skill. And in this situation, we're
Mhm.
actually going to go to that player with the stronger skill. And so the parents are saying, well, my kid's trying really hard. It's like, yes, they are. And in some situations, there is a better option for the team, and then that's where the appropriate feedback comes back. Because then we don't
Yeah.
say to that player, hey, good job, you did great. It's like, hey, you did this and this really well. And what we
Yeah.
need right now is a block.
Yeah.
And that's not in your skill set. I had a sub where I had to sub the setter out because everything was going crazy. And I'm looking and we're not really getting our stuff together here. And so I need somebody to come in and settle the group. 3 serve receive errors got made. As I'm making the sub, I said, hey, I'm not taking you out for your errors because those last 3 errors were not yours. And I need the situation on the court to settle. And the way that player plays, that isn't the strength that they bring. And
Mhm.
so I said, hey, not taking out because of those errors, but I am taking out because I need something else out there right now.
Yeah.
And so being very specific about the feedback back that we give, because I think the thing is, when you tell somebody they did a great job and they know they didn't, or that they don't have it that game, now they don't trust you,
Yeah.
right? Because
And it doesn't feel good.
no,
It doesn't feel good when somebody says you did good. And I'm like, that was a terrible game for me. Now I'm offended that you think that was good.
or I don't think you're telling me the truth.
Yeah.
And so, and I think you and I both coach like this. I'm going to give sometimes tough feedback. But when I say, hey, great job, I saw you out there doing the things that we had talked about, you just see a player light up because they're like, yeah, I did do that. And now I'm getting that accolade because I actually did the hard thing.
Yeah.
And coach didn't tell me I was doing a good job when I wasn't getting it yet.
Yeah. And I find too, especially, well, practice or a game, but if somebody's really working on something specific, but they're not having great execution, but they're actually fixing whatever part of their skill it is, then I can praise their efforts of, I don't care that you just hit that ball into the net. I saw you reached high and you had a great approach. You did everything I was asking you to do better than it was before. So then I can praise that, like, yes, you ejected well, keep doing that part. And then,
Yeah.
so that they can be like, okay, so coach isn't mad at me that I failed. Coach is happy that I'm pushing myself to fix this part of my game.
That's right.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And so that encourages the effort of don't find the easy way to get a half result. Do the hard thing that may not give you the immediate result, but long term is going to build a skill that gives you more consistent results. And I think for coaches, serving is such a good one, right? There are a lot of funky things that athletes will do to force the ball over the net, especially when they're
Yeah.
young. Don't let them get away with it.
Yeah.
Bring them
Yes.
back and be like, okay, I saw what happened there. I need you to keep working on the thing that we're working on, because if you just keep reinforcing this kind of half, you're never going to get that consistent. You're counting on luck to get the ball over the net.
Yeah.
And yeah, and it's not dealing with the foundation and the fundamentals.
Well, and I had a player like that this year on the team I was helping with, and she was either like deadly or a total miss. But it was her form. I'm like, you've got no chance of consistency with your form. So this is what I want you to work on. And she just wouldn't.
Yeah.
She'd immediately do it exactly the same as she's been doing it. And I would talk to her, a couple times, and I was like, oh, she's just, if she would have had a good toss and a high contact, I'd have been like, yes, that was good. Keep going. You'll get it. Nope, wouldn't do it. Right. And that's that piece of girls, that perfectionism and not wanting to fail. So
Yeah.
rather than fix my form, I'm going to do it this bad way and keep going rather than get worse before I get better, which is
Yeah.
a detriment to their game.
And I would say, as a coach, I'm thinking of a couple situations where players kind of did something quirky, but I'm looking at it and I'm, well, if that works for them, right? So there's a fine line sometimes of that's an awkward looking toss, but they've got a couple, and as long as the fundamentals are there, okay, that doesn't look the same as others. And so finding those places where, well, I'm going to let them do it that way because that's what works. And then there's the other ones where
Yeah.
it's these shortcuts and these cheats, and they're gonna eventually, yeah. So being,
Yeah. And it's the long-term game. That might work as if you don't want to play past U16 or U15 volleyball, but if you actually want to keep going and make the zone team, for instance, or if you want to play on the senior team in high school, then you've got to fix those things because you're not going to be able to slough it.
well, and I think it goes back to our conversation we were having last time, is at that highest level, it's the error minimization. And when you are taking shortcuts and not working on your technique, you're not going to have minimal errors. You're, like you said, you're 50-50, right? So yes, sometimes it works, but a lot of times it doesn't. And when it comes down, and this is when we're choosing to play players, do I play the player who sometimes things work out well and sometimes they don't? Or do I do the player that, okay, this isn't fancy, but they're doing the things fundamentally right and they're slowly building, and I'm looking at them over, okay, my next couple seasons, I'm going to keep investing in this kid that's willing to work at this level and not have it go well, but they're trying. They're trying to do it the way that we've instructed.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think, and so that as a coach too, and a reflection to parents, is sometimes as a parent, we're watching our special flower and we're not necessarily seeing the coach is watching everybody. And so they'll see their player come out and they'll be, but so and so made mistake. Yeah, but we're looking at different mistakes.
Yeah.
You and I are tolerant of certain mistakes
Yeah.
because they're trying to do what we ask. And
Yeah.
then I have another player that I've asked you to be in position. This has nothing to do with skill. I've asked you to be in a position, and the last 3 plays you haven't been in that position. I'm taking you off the court. And the parents like, but, no, 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 no. We're not
Yeah.
having that conversation.
Yeah.
That player knows the expectation and they're willfully choosing not to do that. That to me means, okay, now you're not playing for the team. You're
Yeah.
whatever you're doing, because that's not a skill thing. That is making a choice not to do something that would benefit your team by being in the right spot.
Well, and I think often then that's where parents have to watch what the conversations they're having at home. Because if they are disregarding what the coach is doing, if you are having that conversation and telling your child that, oh, you're way better than so and so, now your kid starts to not listen to the coach and not respect what the coach is saying. So when the coach is saying, get into position and this is where I need you to be, and you're like, no, my mom has told me to be somewhere else and I'm not going to do it. So like it's that piece of working against us. And it's not always as blatant as that, but it
Right.
also can be as blatant as that. And we know it when a parent makes a mistake and immediately looks to their parent in the stands, then you're like, "Oh, I know what's going on at home." And it's not helpful, parents.
No,
Yeah.
it really isn't. And I think that is a great place to talk to parents, is if you are uncertain, you should ask your athlete questions before you tell them what you're observing, because your athlete probably knows more and can probably share with you the dialogue that the coach has had. And sometimes they haven't, right? Because your athlete hears what you're saying in the car. And they're like, I probably can't tell mom and dad that coach has told me explicitly I need to play my position.
Yeah.
Right. So maybe ask questions. Hey, what's happening there? Do you know why you came off? And then
Yeah.
it might be insightful because if your athlete actually can't tell you, that's when we can work with our athletes. So, okay, I think it's important that you understand that. Maybe you could have a question with your coach. I
Yeah.
told you about the player that said, hey, coach, can I meet you? And we ended up having the best conversation. They
Hmm.
were having lots of feelings. We addressed the feelings. And then when it came down to it, they were able to acknowledge, well, yeah, I guess because the other two players were playing so well, of course it made sense that even though I want to be out there, yeah, it made sense what happened. And I ended up following up with that athlete's parents after, and the parent just said, "Hey, we left it in her hands to deal with."
Yeah.
And hey, thanks for letting me know. But we had a really good discussion. I was so thankful she came to me. And the parent was, oh, that's great. We actually didn't talk too much about it at all because we feel it's important that she handles this. And of course, that was the athlete that felt
Yeah.
empowered to handle that. And I just think those are life skills.
Well, and I think hopefully your coach is a safe space. And so even when they're U13s and U14s, encourage your athlete to go to their coaches and ask those questions because that's a life skill. So go to coach and be like, "Hey coach, I'm just wondering, what's going on here?" And it is a very adult conversation. And they still should practice doing it while it's a safe space because we can't just expect them to automatically, when they're 25, to be like, oh, I've never had to have a hard conversation because my parents have done it always for me. And now I have to go to my boss. That's an impossible ask. We want them to do little steps so that they build in confidence and skills for when they're grown-ups.
Yeah. And then there's a right way to do it too, right? The athlete that, coach, how come I'm not playing in the middle of practice when I have six other things going on? And I'm like, hey, not the time. So there is a time when the player can come to the coach, hey, coach, I'd really like to talk to you. When would be a good time? So now you've approached with an inquiry. You're asking your coach to name a time. And for me, it's always, I'd love to talk to you before or after practice. But
Yeah.
in the middle of practice, in the middle of a game, hey, coach, how come you pulled me out? Like, thank you. You need to learn timing as well. Like,
Yeah.
and what a great skill, right? That's a life skill too. You're not going to demand something from somebody in the middle of a heated exchange, but you can definitely say, hey, when could we have a conversation about this? When would work for you?
Yeah,
So,
for
yeah.
sure. And I think like it becomes that, learning great skills from just having hard conversations and appropriateness. But it's also that piece of when we overpraise when they're younger, when they're a little bit dumb and they don't know that mom says I'm awesome. So I believe I'm awesome,
Yeah.
but I'm not awesome. But I have this inflated sense of self now, which is it ends up being a messy space as well. And those kids get really hard to coach because they think they're awesome and they're not awesome.
Well, and I can give you an example when that's happening. And the issue is like, I'm thinking of this one situation, and that young person is now giving a lot of verbal to their teammates. And you can see the teammates looking not okay to the point, hey, you didn't do this, this, and this to their teammates. And the teammates are looking. And at 15, like how you relate to your teammates. And this player has been filled with this, you're so great, you're awesome, you're doing a great job. And they've been allowed to have this unfiltered running dialogue that they're now doing it in a situation where it's going to start working against them. And
Hmm.
the parent has set them up for that. I look at the situation from the outside and go, I feel bad for that because that's just a kid. And
Hmm.
yet nobody's kind of reined in this constant stream of dialogue, which is really actually hard on the team culture. And I mean, as a culture coach, right? I'm
Yeah.
looking at this as you got a big problem here. Because one, this has been allowed to go unchecked,
Yeah.
and I would be nipping that in the bud right away. But it's also starting to actually negatively impact that young player. And I feel bad because it's, you got a lesson to learn here. And it's going to be a harder and harder lesson because they're going to start getting ostracized by their teammates. So instead of a parent having a, hey, there's a way that you interact with your teammates, that maybe there's a request to be had, but caution, you're actually coaching your teammates. That's not going to fly.
Yeah. And then there's a situation where a player is outstanding and they're outstanding from the time that they're young and their parents have pumped them up. And I mean, the player is that good, but then they get this belief that they are better than everyone, more so than just physically. And that ruins things too. And that one player won't be your MVP. They will ruin your team with their attitude. They might be your strongest, like skill wise, but that's not your valuable player because they can be a cancer. And I can think of a specific girl and she got hurt right before provincials. And the rest of the team was like, thank God we play so much better when she's not here. So you're physically your best player, but she is so toxic on the court with her ego
Yeah.
that she actually causes more harm than good.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's two different sides to that. And I don't think I know the mom, and I don't think she overpraised her, but I don't think she checked the ego
Mm.
either. She didn't step in to be, you don't get to be an asshole to your
Right.
teammates. You don't
Yeah.
get to treat people like that. And we know a girl who is outstanding, who played on the Canadian U18 next gen team, and she is phenomenal. She's already been signed, an outstanding player and an absolute sweetheart. She is
Oh,
encouraging and kind and patient with everyone. And so it just shows like you can be amazing and actually be that leader that actually helps your team to be better.
well, we played against her. We walked
Yeah,
into a
yeah,
gym that one year and I looked at my team and was like, we can't play here. This is not safe. This is not okay. That player was so heads and shoulders above everybody. I watched her that whole game after being terrified that my team was going to get injured. I walked away. Oh my goodness. I am so grateful to lose to a team like that because that player was so encouraging and so positive of her teammates as they made mistakes that she could have easily stepped in front of, played that ball. Instead, she was positive and encouraging. And yeah, it was an outstanding display of an exceptional athlete being a good teammate.
yeah,
So just because you are heads and shoulders above everybody else does not mean you need to behave that way. You
yeah,
can behave in a way that makes everybody, and she made her whole team better.
yeah,
She made everybody around her play better because they all felt like they weren't going to, oh, you're better, you take the ball. No, she's yelling at me to take, and in the
yeah,
positive way, she's saying, go,
yeah,
go, 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 that's yours.
yeah.
And they, yeah, that was
She was
really,
impressive.
she
She
was
was
impressive
so impressive. Yeah,
and impressive as a teammate, right?
yeah,
So that's really cool.
yeah. Okay, let's shift to helping parents to how do you praise your child even when they have had a tough game. So instead of talking about you played amazing when you know that they didn't, you can say things like, I loved seeing you keep competing even when things weren't going your way. Or you maintained a great attitude despite having a tough go of it. Because that you're praising for if she actually did it. If she's controlling her attitude and energy, then you're
Yeah.
praising her for that, things that are totally in her control. And that's worthy and that's growth mindset. And it's just, I love how you keep digging in, even when you're having a tough time. So,
Yeah. Yeah. And I saw you go back, be focused before your serve, and you executed on those things that you could control, that were in your control, the best that you could at that moment. I saw you, looked like you were in your head, kind of shake it off, and I saw you have a success.
it can be improvements too. It can be things, small things like I see you being more vocal on the court. I know that you've been working on that. So I can see you actually talking more. That's great. And if it's true, then praise away
Yeah. If it's true, right?
if it's
And I
true.
think,
Yeah.
and when it's not true, I think checking in with your athlete. Hey, do you want to talk about that game? What was going well? Could you even identify what was the loop? What was going on in your head? Oh, yeah, I was really down on myself. Okay. Great awareness. And maybe it's just praising awareness. That's really great that you are aware that you're being really hard on yourself. In the situation that happens again, what would be a cue for yourself that you could maybe stop that
Yeah.
in its tracks?
Totally. And then there's that piece of sometimes we just have a bad game. And also guiding our girls to be like, everybody has a bad day sometimes. That was just a bad day. Dismiss it.
Yeah.
Let's not overanalyze it. Let's not overthink it. I always think of that Nebraska player, Andy Jackson. She's a university superstar, fourth year player. She plays all the time. In the finals, sat on the bench because she just couldn't get it together and a rookie played. And then she became like the best cheering section ever on the bench. Right. And it's just even a person like that has a bad day. So let it be.
Yep. I said to my girls on the Friday at Nationals when we didn't have a great day, and it wasn't that I was playing everybody. It was like some of my go-to players were just wobbly. And I said to them, hey, that wasn't our best. The acknowledgement of the truth,
Yeah.
that wasn't your best. And we're going to go tomorrow. We're going to have a better focus. You guys seemed a bit scattered. We're going to have fun.
Hmm.
So after anything that goes well, I want big celebrations. I want, yes,
Yeah.
that's going well. And then we'll move on to the next thing. But acknowledging the truth and coming up with a way of let's have something that we can cue on so that we're not just talking about, because that's the other thing. You can belabor the thing that is not going well instead of, okay, there it is. Let's move on.
And then the other thing that parents, especially if maybe your daughter is on the bench all day, but she was leading the cheering section and being an amazing teammate, that is worthy of praise. Parents, sometimes we forget because our egos hurt and our babies are hurting because they're not playing, but our babies might be okay with it and know that this was going to happen and decide to be the best bench player there was. And that's okay to praise that too and be genuinely happy because that is a huge, huge thing and a big it speaks of their character. And that's
Yeah.
something to be very proud of. You see your daughter being an amazing cheering section on the bench, that's huge.
Well, and I think that's a really great point, Michelle, because it points to your athlete is in an environment where they aren't the strongest player. They have so much to learn. And if we are on, hey, you're not playing, that sucks, this is too hard, we're not pointing to the fact that, hey, I see that you didn't really get on the court. That tells me these players are super solid. You must be learning so much in practice. And what did you notice the players on the court were doing that you can work on in practice? Because obviously they're at a place where they're executing and they're getting the opportunity to be on the court. That means there's something there for you to learn, and helping our athletes focus on that. One, be a good bench buddy, but also be learning on the bench. What is it that is like, what lesson is there here in life to learn?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had one player that was this different times this year was up and down. So she wasn't one of our starters, but I noticed that when she was on the bench, she'd be analyzing the other team. And then she'd come over and be, Michelle, I really noticed that this player always does that, which is great because I don't always, I get lost sometimes watching our side and I'm not picking up on, oh, we can adjust to that player because she literally does the same thing every time. But then this player is also in between games. She was doing a major scouting report. She was watching the team we had to play and she was sitting there all by herself because I did see her and she's texting me madly, okay, this player has a tendency to do this. And so she's watching and so she's like, okay, how can I add value if I'm not the top six
Yeah.
players? Right. And it was just
Amazing.
like, it was an amazing thing. And it makes her a better player because she's watching and learning. Okay. So if they're doing this, I need to do that. And so she's thinking about it. So I think it's going to be great to see because I feel like she's going to grow in her mental game and how she sees and reads things for this coming season. And I think
That's
it's
amazing.
it's going to show up. So
Cool. Like,
yeah.
and to really acknowledge that as a parent too, right? Wow, you were really stepping into a role there. We've talked about this, right? What's your role?
Hmm.
And is your role to be like, I'm picking up things on the other side. I'm giving tips to the players that are on the court, I'm engaged. And that might be that role. And then I'm also bringing that to practice so that I can build on those things that I saw, like, hey, if I could notice that, how do I defend that? And so there's a place of mental rehearsal is psychologically equal to the actual physical rehearsal. And so the fact that they're engaged at that level mentally, I think what you're pointing to is they're just going to be that much better of a player. So they're
Yeah.
developing in ways. Yeah.
Yeah. Totally.
Awesome.
All right. I think it's that time.
Okay. So our top three takeaways.
I have one, and it's in that right off the bat is to make sure we're praising attitude and effort, and that gets into that growth mindset that there's just so much more to praise than the number of kills and aces somebody's getting. Like I'd much rather hear parents praising attitude and effort than on like you got the most kills in the game, right? So,
I think second would be coming to things from a place of inquiry. So if your athlete's not getting the opportunities to play, checking in with them if they understand what they could be working on to move in that direction, and learning how to excel in the role that they have.
yeah. And then I think for me, the last one would be that space of we want to teach our girls to get out of the perfectionist mindset. So teach them that, yeah, sometimes we have bad days. We can't always control how we show up physically, but that you just had a bad day and let it go. Having a bad day that doesn't define you. It
Yeah,
is just, we need to teach our girls in that sense to be more like boys and be like, it was just a bad game. I'm not a bad person. I'm not a bad player. Yeah, so work on that mindset of keeping our girls out of that perfectionist mindset.
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Michelle. I'm Sarah, and together we're unstoppable.